Well, the St. Louis Cardinals are 14-17 after the month of April. Lost game 1 of May, but we're going to be doing our overall big picture on this episode of Dealing the Cards. Hey, Cardinals were 3-3 on the road trip. It might not feel like that, but things are moving around right now. We're shuffling the host deck here. The Cardinals are 14-17. Okay, last year this time they were 10 games back of the NL Central lead and 10 games back of the third wild card. It's a vastly different situation record-wise, but I think it's fair to say the frustration is pretty equal to last year. There's a lot going on here. And so today I want us to go through our big picture, a big picture takeaways, and then kind of go through each of the units of the team as well. We would love to hear your takeaways from the team in the chat as we're going as well. So let us know. We might highlight some as we go through too. Sandy, I want to start with you. Big picture, month of April's over, going into May. I mean, we'll count today's game to 14-17. Sure. What's your big picture takeaway for the Cardinals? It could be this season, big picture overall. What is your big picture takeaway from the St. Louis Cardinals so far this season?
I'm pissed. That's my big picture takeaway. I'm tired of it. I know that it's going to get better. I know it has to get better, but I'm ticked off with what I've watched. I think my big picture takeaway is the Cardinals are disappointing thus far, but not for the reasons we expected. And that makes it all the more frustrating. Like,
interesting.
If you had told me that the pitching staff would be this good, and if you had told me that the Cardinals might have the best bullpen in the league, I would have said, great, they're going to be 20-10 at the end of April, and we're going to be talking about a team that's contending for a bye in the NL playoff picture. Instead, you're looking at a team that's 3 games below 500. They're in last place in the NL Central. They have the least homers in the entire league. They have a bottom 3 OPS. Basically, every statistical category offensively, they are in the bottom 3 in the league, and it's frustrating. I would give this team right now a C- to this point in the season. Barely a passing grade because, sure, they're not out of it. They haven't dug a 10-game hole, but pending results later today, they have a 6-game hole right now. Like, that's still bad. They're still, well out of it right now. There's a lot of time. It's not last year. I know that, but C-.
Okay, C-. Andrew, what's your overall big picture takeaway so far?
I mean, I kind of expected, people will call me negative. People in the comments will do that all the time. But I kind of expected the team to not be doing this great at this point in the season. I just didn't expect that the reason that we were doing not this great is because nobody's hitting. Even Wilson Contreras, he hit a home run today, but this series was pretty bad for him. I think he struck out 8 times in 12 play appearances, which
it was bad.
I mean, the homer is good, but that's not plus production, it's not something the OPS for that series is still not good, right? So right now they just need to figure out how to hit the ball and hit the ball hard. Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado have 3 home runs. Tyler O'Neill has 12. So probably not 12, but he has,
I think he has
way
10.
too many. But yeah. I just would like to see this team do a little bit more than just hit singles and kind of bloop their way to winning games, which is kind of what they've been doing. Yesterday, first game of the doubleheader, we got to Shelby Miller, but a lot of those balls were hitting on the ground. They were hit hard on the ground, but honestly, it was kind of a little bit of a lucky inning for the Cardinals anyway, right? Now, I'm not saying that the Cardinals should have kept Tyler O'Neill. What are they doing? No, I think we should have got more for him. But my point is the offense has just not been anything that we've expected. Lars Nootbaar's expected batting average is 120 points over his actual batting average. Everybody is underperforming, essentially, aside from Mason Wynn and Wilson Contreras, which just can't be happening with this team, right? This team should be 20-10 because the offense should have been good for the first month, and the pitching was really, really good, right? The pitching was so much better. We did an emergency episode with Lynn and Kyle Gibson were signing, and we were so upset. Josh was like, this is a D off season. He almost spilled Mo's water all over the floor. But they've been really good. They've been the bright spots of the rotation. Mikolas and Matz are the guys who have been struggling, which is fine. Matt's is probably going to move to a bullpen role if they are contending at the deadline and add another starting pitcher. But the bats really just have to come alive. And, we're playing the White Sox, and we say sweeps are hard, but they've won 7 games. you have to sweep the series.
Yeah. It's fair.
Yeah, you definitely want to see a season sweep. I'd say my big picture thing is once this offense is going, I'm not even going to say once this offense is a top 10 unit. Once this offense is not a bottom 3 unit in baseball, they should win a decent amount of games. They should. I mean, they're almost a 500 team with one of the worst offenses I've seen in a long time. Like, you don't see a team underperform this bad at the plate or perform this bad at the plate unless they're intentionally tanking. Like, they have a quadruple A team out there and you're the White Sox or the Oakland Athletics. Like, so the fact that they have been in it, the pitching has been this good so far. Again, like, it's tapered off a little bit. And if you look at like the team metric numbers, like the team ERA isn't going to flash you by any means at the rotation. But I think that's where ERA can kind of get you a little bit. Is you like before Kyle Gibson's last start, he had a ballooned ERA, but then you go and look, it's like, hey, he had one bad start against the Marlins, and otherwise he was really good. Mikolas had a pretty good start today. It wasn't bad. I mean, that home run he gave up looked like he was. Have you ever played like coach pitch baseball before, where it's like before you get to kid pitch and the coach throws it to you? That's what Mikolas looked like. He looked like he was just lobbing it in there, hoping his player could crank it. It was so bad, but like. It wasn't like he gave up 8 runs today. So Matz was obviously really bad recently. The bullpen yesterday kind of blew up in game 2, but it was the lower end arms. It wasn't their top end arms. I just think I'm really impressed by every other area of the team right now. And every other area of the team was what I was concerned about. Obviously I was optimistic about the bullpen coming into the year, but like, I thought the rotation would have to be that, like, it's never going to make you feel good, but they can win games because the offense is good enough. And it's been the opposite. It's like, when the Cardinals win, it's because the offense like scraped by and somehow won the game and it doesn't look good, but the pitching looks good. So my big takeaway right now is, hey, they're not out of it. Last year, I know depending on how things go tonight, they could be like 6.5 games back, which is not good. It was different though at the beginning of May last year. This is when they went on like an 8 or 9 game losing streak and just really fell apart. I don't see that happening here. They are about to come and face the White Sox. If they got swept by the White Sox, legit change would have to happen. This would be so bad.
Big picture. Paul DeJong has the same number of home runs as Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt combined.
Hey, love to see it. Love to see a Paul DeJong resurgence. Why don't we have an article going out about the Cardinals giving up on Paul DeJong?
Because his OPS is like 650.
It's going to happen regardless. Someone's going to see that stat you just said, and they're going to be like, see, they should have kept him. Who cares what Mason Wynn does? I'm just kidding.
You know what? I take Paul DeJong over Brandon Crawford 7 days a week and twice on Sunday.
I actually 100% agree with that. I would much rather have
sick of Brandon Crawford being on this team.
We'll get to stuff like that soon, but I'd say if I had to give it a grade, I want to say a C because they're like about 500. And every other area of the team I feel good about except the offense. But the offense is so bad that it feels weird to give them a C. So I'll probably go like C-.
That's where I am.
And it's like a weird C-, where it's like you honestly would be in the B+ A- tier if the offense was what we thought it would be, but it's not. And it's just such a glaring hole. So speaking of the offense, I know we talk about all the time. So each of us maybe give, and we could try to give different takeaways than each other if possible. Sure. But Sandy, what is your major takeaway right now with the offense? Besides the fact that it's just bad. Like what's something specifically you're concerned about?
I'll say the offense is like directly costing them games. That's my takeaway. So you're ready for this. This is like my own personal metric that I invented. Okay. And it's called games that are the offense's fault that we lost. Okay. Anytime the Cardinals lose,
see it on Fangraphs
and they score 3 or less runs, I just give the offense a loss. Okay. And anytime they lose and the pitching staff gives up 6 or more runs, I blame it all on the pitching staff. It's all their fault. This season, so they can both happen at the same time. When the Cardinals, for example, lose 14-1 to Arizona, both sides get a loss because they both sucked and they both deserve just to be condemned. Okay. The Cardinals have lost 17 games this year. I blame 14 of those losses on the offense. They have lost 14 games because they scored 3 runs or less. That is awful. They've lost another 2 or they've lost another 1 because they've only scored 4 runs. So if the Cardinals just score 5 runs, which the average team does, they almost never lose games. Only twice this year have they lost a game where they've scored 5 runs or more. In those games, one was the game yesterday, the second part of that doubleheader, which was a weird game. And I'm really mad at Ali for how he used the bullpen. I thought it was just brainless. And then also, but I know it's really hard to cover the innings. I get it. But if you have a lead, just protect the lead. don't put Giovanni Gallegos out there, like play to win the game. So I'm upset about that. But the other one was a game against the Brewers where the Cardinals took an early lead. We were really excited. And then there was just an implosion and we lost 12-5. So if the Cardinals can just be average, okay, they basically never lose, but they can't be average. And so I'm blaming 14 of the losses on the offense.
You know what's wild? That was literally my argument for the pitching staff this offseason. If you're just average, the offense will win the games. And right now it's like, hey, offense, if you could just be average, the pitching staff will win the game.
It's a reversal. And it's so frustrating. That's what's so annoying. It's the same thing. And it's painful.
I just calculated the 15th ranked offense and runs scored. It's about 4.6 runs per game. So lines of what you're saying,
winning every single game,
5 runs, aka be the middle of the pack offense.
Yeah,
you'd be okay.
So I'll do the math for how many more games we would win if we had scored 4 while Andrew's talking, and then I'll hit you back with that number.
Okay, I'll get my quick takeaway because it just goes right off of yours. I think because of everything you just said, and actually, I'm sure Andrew's like a playoff it too. My big takeaway is there's nothing you could do. I think you just have to wait. And like, cause think about it. Like, who are you? Like, what move? You can't make a move right now. It's May. No one's trading. Like, there's every once in a while, there's the Willy Adames that gets traded. But also, like, what position are you trading for someone? Are you benching Lars Nootbaar? Are you benching Paul Goldschmidt? Are you benching Nolan Arenado? Are you benching Mason Wynn, Wilson Contreras, Nolan Gorman? I guess you could get a center fielder, but they're about to get Dylan Carlson back. I don't think that's going to happen. In all honesty, I'm still way more concerned about Miles Mikolas or Steven Matz toward the deadline than I am this offense. Sure. I mean, I'm not going to say like you could fire Turner Ward, and I bet it could help. I'm not saying it wouldn't, but I think overall the pieces for the offense to succeed are on this roster already. Yeah. And the only pieces I could think of that could potentially change it are Jordan Walker, Dylan Carlson, maybe Thomas Ajayce later, but like not right now. Like everyone on the team just has to perform better. And so it's frustrating because you watch it and you're like, it doesn't look like it's going to get better. But we were talking before the show, like their expected WOBA this year, which is a really all encompassing stat of an offense, is the 15th ranked offense in baseball. And they're like 28th in WOBA right now.
Crazy.
Again, like I'm not like I love advanced stats. I love the projections and the expected stuff, but it's not gospel. So I'm not going to try and say like, oh, well, they should be the 15th ranked offense right now. What I'm telling you is it looks this bad. And even the advanced metrics are telling you it shouldn't be this bad. And it should start looking better too. So I think my big takeaway with this offense is it sucks. It's really bad right now. We have to wait it out. And the silver lining I'll say too, is that over this past week, the overall offensive numbers, like in terms of batting average, slug, OBP, started to get a little bit better. Like even look at this Tiger series. What was it? They had 15 base runners in the second game of the series, 16 base runners. They had 8 base runners in game 1, 8 base runners in game 3, but only scored 1 run in the first and third game. Like 8 base runners, 1 run. You can't do that. So Sandy's been talking about their ability to hit with runners in scoring position for a while. I was trying to say, like, yes, it's a problem, but their numbers without runners in scoring position are equally bad. Now, I haven't looked at it specifically, but if you look at them without runners on base now, it's getting better. It's not good, but like you see the hits and the walks coming. It's the slug and the timely hits that aren't happening. So like that has to come for them to be good, but they're not in a complete rut anymore. So maybe it gets better at this White Sox series. I don't know. That's my big takeaway. Andrew, where are you at this offense?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything you can do, which is terrible. I don't know like what you can go out and do to make this offense better. Like Lars Nootbaar has been the worst hitter on this team, but his expected slugging percentage is .463. Like that's pretty good, right? So I don't know what you do with that. Like Alec Burleson, all of a sudden everything is landing for him, which is great. But like it seems like Lars Nootbaar, nothing is landing for him. He's hitting the ball really hard. He's putting together good at bats. Every once in a while, he'll strike out looking and look really dumb, but that's just what he does. Like that's how he gets on base. So like I respect that. I'm not gonna be upset that he strikes out looking every so often. But like Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, you have to believe in them. If those guys don't perform, this team is not going anywhere, right?
Yep.
Like
I actually
we've said that
with that
over and over again.
Oh, whoa.
There's enough young talent that they can win
like Nolan Gorman
with a middling. Well, sure, they're not doing it right now, but it's like all the Cardinals need is 4 or 5 of their 9 bats to actually hit. Like they have 9 interesting bats. They just need 5. The problem is this season they've had 1. Like you just can't have 8 guys slump at the same time. Even if Goldschmidt is not the same, even if he finishes the season with like a 700 OPS, and even if Arenado finishes with like a 750 and they're barely league average hitters, that's fine if the rest of your offense does what they should do. You'd still have like a top 10 offense. The problem is you have like 8 dudes slumping right now.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, but you mean more so like you can't be so bad that Goldschmidt or Arenado are unplayable, like then you
right,
like because that's what it's been for a lot of the year.
Yes, which is what Goldie had for like up until like yesterday, where he went like 4 for 4 with a bunch of singles. But like hit the ball over the fence. That's what you're here to do. That's why you're going to the Hall of Fame. Like it's really not like at a certain point, all of these great players, they will fall off, and it seems like we're seeing 2 of them at the same time, which is pretty frustrating. Like I would like to see them get back on track. I don't think Arenado at least is at the point where he's going to start regressing this badly, but I mean maybe, right? Like I don't know.
Yeah,
we saw all the signs last year too. So it's just
how long does Turner Ward keep his job?
I mean, honestly, I think something needs to change like right now.
Yeah, I agree.
And whether that's you, like, I understand that Ollie does his best, right? Like he's a really like hardworking guy. I respect what he puts into the game. He has a lot of passion for this team to win, but it's at a certain point you need to change, and it's like. It's a results-driven industry, and he hasn't given the results last year. This year, we'll see, but it doesn't look like things are going well right now. And can we really fault the roster construction anymore? Like Kyle Gibson, Lynn, and Sonny Gray have done their job. They were brought in to fix the rotation. They fixed the rotation. Kittredge has revamped the rotation. Middleton hasn't come in yet. He's been hurt, but like if he comes in and becomes a solid back end of the rotation guy, you can get rid of Giovanni Gallegos and no one's going to care, right? Like Mo has done everything right, honestly. Like,
whoa,
press the button.
Andrew, hold up.
Other than today, where he was like, when Dylan Carlson comes back, we're going to score a lot more points, and I was like, what was that? But like that's the one thing that I'll be mad about right now. But like he built the roster correctly. Like unless you want to like trade for Juan Soto or sign somebody else, like how are you going to make this team better offensively coming into this year? You aren't. So I don't know. I don't think Ollie's done a bad job. I think he does his best, and it's like the results just haven't been there. And
yeah.
I don't know.
I don't think it's Ollie. I would like to see Turner Ward fired first. I think Ollie's actually been pushing the right buttons in the bullpen. Like he's getting the most out of Helsley, Romero, and Kittredge for the most part, and that's great. Like the bullpen management this year is the reason the Cardinals have won a lot of the games they've won. You don't win those 2-1 games unless Romero, Kittredge, and Helsley are ready to lock it down, and Ollie's done a good job of that. But like Turner Ward, see you later. Are we at the point where it's any day? Like, is the next shutout Turner Ward's last game? Is he really is he coaching for his job right now? Because he should be. It's terrible. There's
we almost got shut out by Jack Flaherty.
14 strikeouts. Okay. The first 7 batters of the game struck out in order. Jack Flaherty struck out 14 guys in 6 2/3. That's the most strikeouts by a pitcher against the Cardinals in less than 7 innings since 1901. It was also a Tigers franchise record for a starting pitcher. You're telling me like a Tigers team that's been around for a gazillion years, has a ton of history, has a Hall of Fame pitchers, guys who have won Cy Young awards, and Jack Flaherty on a random, Tuesday afternoon against the Cardinals has the best start in franchise history? Come on. Like
it's double headers. I'm just kidding. I'm not complaining on that.
It was the first game of the doubleheader.
Yeah. Andrew, I think that, so your point that you made is why, I'm not like, at this point, I'm not against, like if they decided to fire Ollie, we get the notification right now, I wouldn't be like, that was the worst move you ever did, or that was a bad idea. I'd be like, okay, go ahead. Like, make some kind of change. Firing Turner Ward, I don't know if I'd say I'm in support of it right now, but I'm definitely not against it. One of the tricky things right now is that, well, first of all, Ollie, like, I think of the issues with the team. Like, I don't know, like, what manager, like, well, I guess the Astros have a new manager too, but like, I just like when you're, or okay, let's think of like the Diamondbacks right now. Is it, I forget their manager right now. Is it his fault that Corbin Carroll has a sub 600 OPS right now? Is it,
Corbin Carroll's not a future Hall of Famer. He's not a guaranteed future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, but he was top 5 in MVP voting last year.
Really?
So like,
and
Ronald Acuna, the reigning NL. Okay, Ronald Acuna, the reigning NL MVP, has a sub 700 OPS right now. Like, is that their manager's fault? So like, I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying that stuff to me is way harder to pin on a manager than like if they're playing bad fundamental baseball right now, which they did last year, but they're not this year. They've tightened the ship.
That's
like,
really good.
Everyone who's around the team is talking about the culture is good. Like, you look at the bench and it looks different this year. Like, they're not having these, like, when they get a home run to tie the game, they're not all sitting there all sulking. Like, they're excited for each other. They like each other. Like, I think those things that you can pin to a manager actually look better. The part where the Turner Ward conversation is hard for me, and I don't think we acknowledge this enough, like in general, not just us three, but like every player seems to have their own individual hitting coaches now, and they do their own off-season programs and they do their own off-season work where it's like, how much can we, like, I'm not saying it to defend the Cardinals. I'm saying I have no idea how much of this is Turner Ward or how much of this is Nolan Arenado deciding that he wants to stop being a pull hitter and he wants to hit it to all fields. Was that the Cardinals' idea? Was that his hitting coach's idea? Was that his idea? Because it was a terrible idea. Like, he is amazing when he pulls the ball. The best outcome in baseball is a pulled ball, fly ball. Nolan Arenado used to be the best at that. And now he's like, hey, I want to hit it the opposite field. I want to do all these different things. And guess what? He's become a worse hitter because of it. Paul Goldschmidt's made changes. Like, how much of that is the Cardinals? How much of that is them? How much of it is just luck? How much of that is baseball? That I don't know. So if you fire Turner Ward, sure. Again, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying I don't like when people throw it out like, oh, it's so easy, just fire the hitting coach. Because guess what? Everyone said that about Jeff Albert, and they were clearly wrong. Jeff Albert was part of the solution here in St. Louis. So like, anyways, I'm just saying like it's not that simple. There's been times when Tony La Russa was the manager and everyone wanted him fired, and he's a future Hall of Fame manager. Like, it's not always that simple. But again, like, you look at the Phillies 2 years ago, and they. I'm not going against you. I'm just saying it's the Ollie one specifically. Hitting coach aside, that's one thing. Ollie specifically, I don't know how much to pin it on him, but you could make the argument that firing him might light a fire under the team.
That's exactly what I think.
So that's why if they actually did it, I wouldn't be like, that's a bad move, because Mike, I see what you're trying to do. This might work, but I don't think it's necessarily Ollie's fault.
Because didn't Washington fire their manager on that World Series run, or was that the Braves? So the Phillies did.
The Phillies did, but then the Nationals stuck with Dave Martinez, I think it is. So like, there's both arguments. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I think like getting rid of a hitting coach, especially if not everyone's relying on him, can at least shake things up.
Yeah,
like the Blues. I know hockey's really different, but the Blues fired Berube and then went on a big winning streak and got back into the race. I'm not saying fire Marmol. I'm not a Marmol hater right now. I think he's been fine this year. He's done some things that like make me upset, but it's not his fault that guys are underperforming. But when you have like an entire team that's slumping, an entire team that doesn't seem to have a two-strike approach, like Gorman gets up there, goes down 0-2 in the count, and then swings out of his shoes again. What are we doing? Like, have an approach. Have an approach with guys on base. Like, these are the things the hitting coach does. The hitting coach might not be in charge of your full philosophy. Like, okay, Arenado's going to go the other way. That's fine. Like, Turner Ward probably didn't tell him to do that. But, like, come on. The hitting coach should be in charge of the team's two-strike approach. The hitting coach should make so the fact that I don't think the Cardinals have one, and the fact that they're hitting so poorly in big spots, to me, that says like, all right, let's shake things up, get rid of this guy, and try something new.
We got to move on in a second, just for sake of time. But but for all these negative things going on, and I just thought of this, so it's devil's advocate. Do we give the Cardinals credit for Mason Wynn looking really good at the plate right now when people questioned if he was going to be even a league average hitter this year? Yes. Are people going to give credit to the Cardinals and Alec Burleson and trusting with him and trust the process because you hit the ball really well, and at some point it's going to start producing results, and it's producing results now.
Yeah.
Do they get credit for Wilson Contreras being like, this is the best he's ever hit in his entire career since July and this year? Like, I know it's slumpy a little bit lately. Like, how much do you give credit for stuff like that? It's the same argument with Dusty Blake last year. Like, the pitching staff was going poorly, but then there were different pitchers that were finding themselves. So it's like, that's why it's all so difficult to me. And I never want to be like, it's so clearly Turner Ward's fault, because I'm like, how do I know that? How does anyone on Twitter just know it is Turner Ward's fault? Because none of us are in the room. We don't know what he does. We don't know if he's saying the right things, if they're not listening. Like Matt Carpenter and there's another Cardinal who came out and said that when Jeff Albert was here, they didn't listen to him. They were like, hey, yeah, Jeff Albert, cool, but like, I'm going to do my own thing. And then they came back later and realized Jeff Albert was right. Like, again, I'm not a Turner Ward defender. I just think this stuff is always so complicated. But I'm for the idea of firing him just to shake things up. I just don't know. I'm not going to clear and cut say it's the problem. Rotation, big takeaways. Andrew, what's your big takeaway with the rotation so far?
I mean, I already said it. Mo did a great job with who he went out and got, right?
Yeah.
I would rather have had a flashier name. And I think, honestly, the DeWitts might have rather had a flashier name too, because if you bring like a Glasnow or a Yamamoto or whoever, more people are going to come to the ballpark. But Lance Lynn has been better than Yamamoto. So, I mean, the Dodgers probably wish they got him back because they have a bunch of injuries that they're dealing with right now. Kyle Gibson, aside from one start, has been really good. I think he's one of like 4 or 5 pitchers that have thrown 6 or more innings in all of his starts. He might lead the league in innings at this point because I think he's gone 7 or 8 in a couple of them. So he's been really impressive. He's given the team a chance to win in all but one of his starts. And even in that start, like you're a couple of mistakes away from a completely different game, right? And we can't really say that, but like he's been really good. Sonny Gray missed some time, but like other than that, I don't have any complaints with him. Miles Mikolas and Steven Matz, why are they on the team? I don't know. I really don't know.
Mikolas had a quality start.
I was an advocate to send Matz to the bullpen this whole offseason. I felt like you needed a 6th starter, and Matz did look really good at the end of last season, but he's always struggled in a Cardinal uniform to start the year. That this year is no different. It's looking like they could have really used like a Dylan Cease or just anybody really like to put at the back of the rotation. They had the money to go do it. They didn't do it, which is unfortunate. And now you're stuck with who do you go with to give that extra rotation spot to? Do you give it to Zach Thompson? He's looked pretty bad in his outing so far. Do you give it to Matthew Liberatore, who's looked really good out of the pen? Honestly, probably not at this point. He's looked really good in relief. And that one outing against the Mets, he started to labor after a couple of innings, and that's how we lost the game, right? So I don't blame him for that loss. It's not his fault. We just didn't have anybody else available. He had to go the distance. But like Sam Robertsa in AAA, I mean, everyone wants him up, and I understand it. I really do. But how many times are we going to make the same mistake with let's call this guy up? Okay, we keep going. How many times are we going to say let's call this guy up and he's going to struggle? And like Victor Scott was not good. Mason Wynn was not good. Jordan Walker had a fun hit streak for a little bit and then was not good. Like how many times do we have to call up guys from AAA and realize maybe they're not ready? Like Matthew Liberatore, I think it happened twice. Nolan Gorman. Like there's just so many guys that people have wanted to get called up and just didn't always work out. I feel like let him cook for a little bit longer in AAA before we give him a rotation spot, especially on a team that's kind of must win right now.
Yeah. And like Sem is a good example too. He's 5 starts this year. So like, and he changed a lot of his arsenal and stuff. So like give him some time to work it out and to figure out if it actually is good. Because he got aggressively promoted to AAA last year when the Cardinals acquired him. He was in AA for the Toronto and he was terrible. And he's 22 years old in AAA. Like for a pitcher, that's a pretty aggressive assignment. He could be good, but like especially like a lot of times I'll look at like the prospect gurus and be like, hey, what are they thinking? Because they're not afraid to say, hey, this guy deserves to be in the major leagues. And a lot of those guys are saying, yeah, you could call him up. You got to be really careful with him. Maybe some short starts. You got to control him a little bit. Like, doesn't sound like a guy that's ready to be unleashed to me. Maybe he's really good, but like we saw with Matthew Liberatore before, it's like just because you tear up AAA doesn't mean you're ready to be in the big leagues. So I think you kind of personally, you got to write it out with Matz a little bit longer. Mikolas, there's not really, I don't think you're in a desperate record wise to make a move like that yet. But then the bigger thing to me is I don't think you have a clear replacement option. So it's like, sure, I'm frustrated, but like, what's your other option right now? I'd rather Matz being beat up out there than Sam Rubber. So right now, like, make it be Matz. And Matz hasn't been bad every start. Like last few's been bad. Again, he's got a back thing, so he might go on the IL. So they might have no choice. Mikolas's ERA, again, some starts have been terrible, some have been pretty good. So like, that's a playable number 5 starter. It's not fun, but like, it's just not great. So I would say actually my big picture thing with the rotation is it's the moves that Mosaic made this offseason. Andrew, you're right. It was perfect. You got 3 guys that have been great. Or I shouldn't say perfect. It's been good. Like you could have gone out and got another frontline starter. They still missed that. It's the moves they've made the past few offseason at the rotation that are killing them. It's having Miles Mikolas on $16 million a year. It's having Steven Matz in the rotation, even though I would argue it's not a bad contract, but he's just not been a good player for them. It's like, and it's the pitching depth behind him. It's the fact that you've got guys in AA and single A that look really promising. And you've got someone in a couple guys in AAA that look promising, but just aren't ready yet. It's the fact that you don't have internal depth readily available. And you've given this money out to Mikolas and Matz, where this offseason you couldn't think about replacing them because you can't waste $16 million in your bullpen with Mikolas or just cut him. And Matz, like, I mean, I think you could have traded him, but let's just say there was no market. Like, you kind of have to play them. So did good with Lynn and Gibson. You did amazing with Sonny Gray. Man, like I've been trying to defend Steven Matz this offseason, and it's just I think I can't remember who said it. I think Talik said it. It's the same song and dance with Steven Matz every year. He looks good sometimes, looks bad sometimes, he's injured. Love it. Like, what do you do? And then Miles Mikolas, he's clearly regressing. So that's my takeaway. The rotation is better than we thought it would be. It's definitely playable, but the 2 guys that are the black holes right now are not the guys they brought in this offseason. It's the guys that were there before. Sandy, what's your takeaway?
Yeah, this is really tough because I like the rotation. I really like the results that they've given so far. Sonny Gray gets an A+ for how fantastic he's been. The 1.16 ERA, the 2.14 ERA or xERA, so the expected metrics. Sonny Gray's Baseball Savant page, if you're interested, basically all red except for the things that don't matter, like extension and fastball velocity. Okay, so he's been amazing. But let me read to you everybody else's expected ERA and then understand why I'm worried about how things will hold up. Let's go to Lance Lynn. Lance Lynn, expected ERA 4.53, actual ERA 2.64. Lance Lynn is going to get worse. Lance Lynn's expected stats paint him as a middling 4. So he's like the 30th to 35th percentile on here, 33rd percentile expected ERA, 35th percentile exit velocity, 35th percentile chase rate. He's been very mid, which is fine. If Lance Lynn reverts to being that's not the end of the world. He's still doing what you're asking him to do, which is giving you innings and turning in quality starts. A 4.5 ERA is 6 innings, 3 earned runs. Exactly what Mikolas did today. That can win some ball games. Let's go to Kyle Gibson. This is a little more worrying. Kyle Gibson's ERA, 3.79. That's been great. He's been very playable. He's been fantastic. The actual stats, 5.55 expected ERA. So that is much more worrying. That's the 16th percentile. Now you're talking about a guy who probably shouldn't be in most rotations if he's got the 5.55 ERA. Very scary. Let's go to Miles Mikolas. Miles Mikolas' ERA, 5.91. He's been bad. His expected ERA, 5.77. So not that much better. Regression to the mean might not happen with Mikolas. The expected stats are really bad. Mikolas' expected batting average, literally 4th percentile. 316. Like, guys should be hitting over 300 against Mikolas. They should be slugging over 500. He's giving up insane hard contact. He is 6th percentile in whiff rate. His whiff rate is lower than the average strikeout rate for a pitcher. Like, that's really bad. Mikolas is not fooling anybody. Steven Matz, also really scary. His ERA, 6.18. His expected ERA, 5.96. That is bottom 10% in the league. He is 10th in expected ERA. He is in the 4th percentile in expected batting average. It's actually higher than Mikolas is at 318. Like, these guys have kind of been getting lucky. It's the same thing with the offense, but a little bit of the opposite. Now, there is some in there that's like, okay, you know what? If Gibson and Lynn get worse, like, they're still really good right now, and they're still putting you in positions to win games. And as bad as Mikolas has been, at least he's eating innings. and maybe he gets a bit better. Like maybe, and that's not the end of the world, but Steven Matz could just be awful this year. And like you said, there's no logical replacement. And so I'm really worried about what it looks like if Steven Matz keeps being this, because the problem with this, so, like the worst start of the season for any Cardinals pitcher is probably the start against the Marlins, where Gibson gave up 6 runs in the first inning. The game was over, but at least Gibson went 6 full innings. Yeah. He gave up 7 runs in 6 innings. He threw 110 pitches and it was awesome. And I would have left him out there the whole time. I would have just said, you pitch until the game's over, because we've already lost. It doesn't matter. But Steven Matz can't do that. Steven Matz the other day, 3 2/3 against the Tigers. I know there's a back problem. I know we might add him on the IL, but it's bad. Steven Matz has been terrible. So the rotation on the surface probably gets like a B+ from me. But if the expected stats shine through, I'm very concerned about what this looks like. I'm very concerned if you have 2 guys who just become black holes, the pitching equivalent of Siani and Crawford at the plate, like we can't sustain that. And so if that's the case, this rotation will quickly become a C- rotation for me. And the problem is, if that happens before the offense actually does what they're supposed to do and the team looks the way it should, you could have an 8 to 10 game losing streak. Well, no, you won't, because Sonny Gray is so good. He'll win the games in the middle, but it'll be bad. Also, Talik, yes, Siani was great today. I like Siani more than I am willing to admit, but I'm worried. Sorry, I went on a long rant there. I went through the expected metrics, though, and they are not encouraging.
Can we show the same energy for the Cubs starter tonight? Because his expected numbers look just like everybody else's. But you know what? I'm not going to go there.
Oh man, I think the part where like you bring up Steven Matz and Mikolas, I'm like, I just don't see it getting worse. Like they've both been bad, so like there's not much regression there to me. Like the only change would be if you change them out of the rotation. And then to your point too, like Gibson and Mikolas, or Gibson and Lynn regressing, I still see them being guys that can win you games. Where it's like I don't see them regressing to being Mikolas and Matz bad, but they might, to your point, regress to the fact that like you're not going to win a game 2-1 with them starting, or 3-1. But like also you go look at their game logs the last few years. Like Kyle Gibson is one of those guys where it's like a lot of starts that are 6+ innings, 3 or less earned runs. And if you told me that's what he's going to give you the rest of the year, I would sign up for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he does have the occasional blow up start because they didn't go out and get Cease or Glass now. Like even those guys have a few blow up starts, but Gibson's going to have more than those guys do. Anyways, I see your point, and I do think you could see some regression there, but I don't think they're a house of cards that's waiting to fall over.
Sure,
right
I'll give you that.
Because also part of that's like their pitching style. Like there's just some guys that succeed at being the ground ball guys that don't get the whiffs and all that. And like Miles Mikolas is the prototypical that can decline on you really quickly, but Gibson and Lynn's stuff, like Lynn can actually strike guys out, and Gibson's stuff is better than Mikolas's. So like his sweeper is one of the best in all of baseball last year. I think Sonny Gray's is the best, and Kyle Gibson's was like 4th best. So like he has the stuff to pitch to contact. Miles Mikolas doesn't. Like Miles Mikolas pitch to contact because they're going to hit you a yard. Like it's batting practice baseball. So I think it's different, but I see your point with that. Let's quickly finish up with the rotation or the bullpen. I like that we're finishing on that because at least, we can touch on the defense really briefly too, but a little more positive stuff. Okay, the rotation, mixed bag. Offense bad. Bullpen though, mostly good, I would say. So my big takeaway is, first of all, you're not going to have an 8-man group that's awesome. Okay, no team has every guy in the bullpen that you're like, man, I'd throw them out there with the bases loaded. It's like you're going to have a few guys like that. Giovanni Gallegos might be that guy right now that you don't trust, which kind of sucks. But you've got 3 guys at the back end that can lock down a game, and that's a huge weapon to have as a team. This bullpen is a top 10 unit, and this bullpen could get better soon. That's my big takeaway. Sandy, what's your big takeaway from the bullpen?
Yeah, the 3-headed monster at the back is honestly like my favorite part of this team. Going into like entering play the other day, Ryan Helsley was the sole leader at the top of saves in baseball with 10. And then this is really funny. JoJo Romero led all of baseball in holds with 11, except he was tied with somebody, and that's Andrew Kittredge, who also had 11 holds, which is insane. So this bullpen has been so elite.
Yeah.
Incredible. And like you said, it's going to get better because you're about to get Middleton and O'Brien and some of these other guys back. They're trusting Fernandez more. I love him. He's been really fun to watch. What a Rule 5 pick. Even Robertson has impressed me. Liberatore has impressed me. And the expected metrics with these guys, which you know I'm big on, are incredible. Red up and down. I see nothing getting worse. Ryan Helsley is literally like in the 98th percentile of basically everything. JoJo Romero's there in everything except extension, which who cares, because JoJo Romero somehow is good and we don't know how, but he's awesome and I'll take it. So I love it.
You do know how he's got that dog in him. He's awesome.
Yeah, he does. He crushes the Red Bull can over his head while he enters the game. Like, he's awesome. This bullpen is fun.
Tell us who doesn't have that dog in him.
Giovanni Gallegos should be DFA'd like now. Like
that's Brandon Crawford.
I'm sorry, but well, yeah, that's true. Just package both of them, ship them to the White Sox, and get Paul DeJong
for back. Paul DeJong.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Right? Like, I don't even know.
Fixes all our problems.
I kind of knew this was going to happen last year. He gave me one of the best baseball moments that I've seen in a while in the WBC, and then I was like, "Uh-oh, that's bad for the season," right? Because it already looks like he doesn't have it. And there are apologists like Sandy who are like, "Yeah, he just has a couple bad outings, but like when he's bad, he's really bad." Right now, it seems like that's every single outing he's just really bad. So. I don't know. He's not very playable. I had a tweet go kind of crazy of like the raccoon jumping off the car and getting run over, like when Giovanni Gallegos comes into the game, and I was like, yeah, that's kind of how I feel. He's just not fun to watch, and there are like so many other guys I would rather give opportunities to. Palante is more intriguing than Gallegos. Yeah. He's younger. He's got a death ball. The results haven't been there so far, but it can't be as bad as Gallegos, who, by the way, I think because of an error that was committed before he entered the game, a couple of the runs he gave up in one outing were not earned. I'm pretty sure that they were not charged to him. So he's actually been worse than the numbers show. Even Kyle Leahy looked better than Gallegos yesterday. He got the loss, but a lot of little soft contact hits. He's not giving up, or he didn't give up any like home runs, any like doubles in the gaps. That's what Gallegos has been doing. He's walking everybody, just doesn't look great. And I'm kind of fed up with it because I saw it last year, and now this year it's even worse. And he has a team option for next year, but I highly doubt they would pick it up. So. Just get rid of him. Give the opportunity to some other people. When Keenan Middleton comes back, I don't really see a reason to hold on to Gallegos. Like even John King, like he provides that lefty ground ball. Just don't throw him in high leverage. You know.
Okay, I'm not getting ready to put John King above Giovanni Gallegos yet. Sandy,
his
quick
results
on the
have been
defense
better.
before you go.
One thought on the defense. Okay, Arenado's back to being the best third baseman in the world. I'm very happy. That's my favorite thing. Also, Ciani, his defense is so good. He can do whatever he wants at the plate. And Wynn's arm is maybe my favorite thing to watch outside of the back three bullpen right now. Okay, I'm sorry.
Throw the ball 106 miles an hour.
That's a lie. It actually went 102. That was not true. Mason Wynn's still better. Also,
but like, did you guys see what that ball ended up? Yeah.
That's in the stands. Okay, I'm sorry. Andrew and Josh take you guys the rest of the way. I got to dip. But go Cards. Please sweep the White Sox.
Yes, please beat the White Sox. That's what we need. Oh my gosh, what a transition. Bullpen. So like to go back to your point about Gallegos, I agree. It's been bad. And you go look at his expected metrics and some of his underlying stuff, it makes a little bit of sense the kind of pitcher he is now, where he's maintained an elite whiff rate, an elite strikeout rate. He's actually got a good ground ball rate too this year, but his hard hit rate is 3rd percentile. So like when people put contact on the ball, it goes far. And so like and that's how last year was too. If you go back to 2022, you get like really good metrics from him. His ground ball rate was actually terrible. His barrel percentage wasn't good, but his hard hit rate was good. His chase, whiff, K, expected batting average, expected ERA were all good. It fell off last year and you saw it. It's continued to fall off this year. I think the kind of contract that he's on right now, I don't think it makes sense to DFA him right now because you're just burning cash when he could get figured out later. I just think you regress him into a lesser role where he's the guy that he's like the 8th man out of the group right now. You don't bring him in unless it's a mop-up duty or unless you got a big lead and you let him figure things out. And if this continues not too much longer, I don't think he's got a huge leash, then you look at making a move like that. But I think the contract.
Does he have options? I don't think he has options, does he?
I would have to check.
Or he has to approve it, right?
Yeah, I don't know if he has the service time for that yet. Guaranteed contracts can kind of make it weird, so that part might make it. Yeah, so I think he'd have to approve it. If he didn't have to, if you didn't want him to pass through waivers, but you could try to pass him through waivers and see if someone claims him. But I think he has to accept the assignment to AAA, so they might have to be forced to release him. So again, I don't think it's worth cutting him, DFAing him yet, but I do think like you got to move him down in the pecking order. And I think they've started to do that. Like when they brought him in the other day, you can make the argument they should have done Kittredge or JoJo there because they were kind of in the game still. But when you're down, like it really sucks to burn one of your best relievers to try and give you a chance to get back in the game and then you don't. So I see both sides to it. I do think like it's interesting. You do have some options in AAA. Like you could bring back Palante, but it seems like they're stretching him out to be a starter. Maybe you go to Graceffo for a little bit as reliever. Connor Thomas is looking pretty good down there right now. They've got other options. And so like, and again, you got Keenan Middleton coming back soon. You got Riley O'Brien. I think you kind of wait to see how those guys play out first before you get rid of a Gallegos because you're just killing another option. But I agree. It's been bad. Not a good sight from Gallegos so far, but I don't think it's worth shooting him into the sun like you guys are doing with Brandon Crawford. But lastly, defense. I'll say my big takeaway too is just a big picture. The defense isn't like, I think sometimes we're overstating how good the defense is. It's a lot better, and it's better at key positions like shortstop. You have an awesome guy there in Mason Wynn. Center field, you've been getting elite defense this year when it was a revolving door last year. The corner outfields are better. Paul Goldschmidt looks better defensively too. Like he's been making picks and like weird like stretch plays that have been really helpful. Nolan Gorman continues to develop. But the big one to me is Wilson Contreras is actually one of the better defensive catchers in baseball this year. He's throwing out runners. He's like in the 70th percentile frame rate, blocking, and he was in like the bottom 30 percentile last year. Just the leaps and bounds that he is better this year. I think that plays a big role in the run prevention they have this year. So Wilson Contreras, I mean, overall the defense being better, but specifically Wilson Contreras' improvement is my big takeaway. Where like when Ivan Herrera is behind the plate, it looks like Wilson Contreras last year. But when Wilson Contreras is behind the plate, it's not Yadier Molina, but it's really good.
Is that why Jack Flaherty was so mad yesterday? I don't know. This must have been something, but like, anyway, he was throwing to Carson Kelly, which was pretty funny.
Yeah, that is funny. I'm surprised we haven't heard any of that yet. Why did they get rid of Carson Kelly?
Honestly,
man,
does he have better numbers than Goldie this year?
Don't.
Does he? I don't know.
Wait, Carson Kelly? Then Willie has like almost a 900.
Goldie.
Oh, they said Goldie. They said Willie. I was like, don't do that. Oh my gosh. Let's see. But also, like sometimes, like with Goldie specifically, like even if Carson Kelly is good now, it's like you got an MVP and an All-Star for multiple years. Like if one guy 5 years down the line ends up doing something, okay, Carson Kelly's a 521 OPS right now. Okay, we're okay.
That was what Goldie was at like last week. So
hey, not anymore though. He's heating up. Right. Hey, also throwing this out there, do not try to act like I'm saying Paul Goldschmidt's going to win MVP. I don't even think he's going to be an All-Star this year. But the year that Paul Goldschmidt won MVP, he had a sub 500 OPS all of April. He had like a 491. So Paul Goldschmidt's a slow starter. We've known that, but he's also had historically bad starts before and ended up turning it around. So just putting that out there. But yeah, Andrew, defense, what are you thinking?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. Mason Wynn is super fun to watch, a lot more fun to watch than a certain negative defensive shortstop that's also in our division who throws the ball 102 miles an hour into the stands. But
they are going with Brandon Crawford for a second.
Yeah, no. Well, yeah, that too. Brandon Crawford's been terrible. There's nowhere around that. He missed a play yesterday that honestly probably cost us the game, second game. But Contreras has been super good. Siani's been great in center. Honestly, though, Lars Nootbaar in center doesn't look too bad. That's something I'll say. The corners could probably be better. Burleson had a little bit of a misplay yesterday. That might have cost the Cardinals a run. So you need to work on that a little bit. But Nootbaar in center, honestly, fairly comfortable with it until Carlson comes back. But Nolan Arenado is probably going to be in the Platinum Glove conversation again this year, which is great to see. Nolan Gorman's been really improved, and Paul Goldschmidt. Like I was watching the Dodgers the other day, Freddie Freeman missed a pick, and I was like, oh, I'm used to my first baseman making that pick. So it is different compared to just watching other teams, and like you expect your first baseman to make a pick when they don't always do that, but Paul Goldschmidt tends to get the job done. So yeah, not many complaints about the defense. Jordan Walker was looking pretty good before he got sent down too. So
yeah,
that was also a plus.
We're wrapping up the stream now. What's up, John? Glad you hopped in. Let's real quick. So we get the White Sox series coming up. Before we talk about what we want to see from that, is there any lineup changes or roster moves you'd like to see? Legitimately, you could throw out the Giovanni Gallegos being DFA'd or Crawford. Like, is there any moves you want to see happen or changes in the lineup you want to see happen here soon?
Once Carlson comes back,
okay.
Once Carlson comes back, if they don't DFA Crawford and they send Fermin back, I will be very upset. Because Fermin can play shortstop. I think he came into the game as a shortstop at some point during this series. Crawford has looked really bad defensively, so it can't be that bad. We also have like every bat on our bench is a lefty bat. Like Burleson's a lefty bat. Siani, when Carlson comes back, will be a lefty bat. Honestly, Siani could bunt and probably have a better slugging percentage than Brandon Crawford, just free swinging. Brandon Crawford swung at a pitch that was like something that I think MLB The Show wouldn't even let you swing at because it would just back you off the plate, if you know what I mean. So anyway, I'm just not a fan of Crawford right now. I don't get it. Like, you have Matt Carpenter, right? He'll be back soon. He's another lefty bat. So just get rid of Crawford. Let Fermin be in there. I'm fine with that. And I don't know, lineup changes. I feel like the lineup is fine as it is. If you move Goldschmidt down any more, then you're just going to lose a bunch of games because he's just not going to be good. Yeah, he has been better. And I guess I'm coming around on not DFAing Gallegos right away, but like you DFA Gallegos, you put in Kyle Leahy, it doesn't really make a difference.
Yeah.
They're neither, hopefully. Well, the reason I want to DFA Gallegos is because Marmol seems to still want to put him in high leverage when he's the only guy available. When honestly, like, are John King's underlying metrics that much worse? And like, his results have been better in a smaller sample size, but like,
King's bad. Like, even last year when he had the 1.9 ERA, whatever, his expected ERA, his FIP was like almost 5. Like, it's just, he's not. I'm not saying he's that much of a downgrade from what Gallegos is giving you right now, but I'm not going to really trust it. But like, you look at Gallegos this year, so he gave up 4 runs the last appearance. His 4 appearances before, they gave up 0 runs, 1 run, 0 runs, 0 runs. Then he gave up 2 and 1, and he gave up 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. So like, he's had a couple blow-ups, which is frustrating, but then he's had more starts, way more starts. He's given up appearances where he's given up 0 runs, and he has given up any runs.
Yeah.
I think so. Like, I'm not ready. Like
that, you're again, as a reliever, if you're giving up 1 run in a 1-inning outing, that's like horrible. Right?
A bit every once in a while.
Like, if you average 1 run every single time, then you're a bad reliever. Like, you're not doing your job.
Which is what he's averaging right now. But that's also partially because he's inflated from an ERA or a game where he gave up 4 runs. He's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of his 10 games so far have been 0 runs allowed. And he gave up
John King is not qualified yet, but he would have red bars and chase percentage, whiff percentage, K percentage, walk percentage, hard hit percentage, and ground ball percentage. So
okay. Anyways, most of Gallegos' appearances so far, he's given up 0 runs, like 7 of the 10, and then he's had a couple of blowups. So that's where I'm like, and then also like after you use up your 3 best guys, most bullpens, it's kind of like, okay, you're not like, you have guys that are maybe going to blow up, and that's where I think Gallegos is at. If he was your 8th inning guy right now, I'd have major concerns, but he's the 4th guy. He will be the 5th guy soon. Well, I don't know when Middleton's really going to come back, but when Middleton's back,
I'd take Liberatore and Robertson over him, or not Robertson.
Oh, that's actually fair. Yeah.
Over him today, so.
Fernandez. Oh, yeah, that's fair. So Liberatore, probably Fernandez too. So yeah, I mean, he's your 6th, 7th guy right now. That's fine. If I think of changes, you guys heard me earlier this season. I was like, whatever, Brandon Crawford's on the roster, whatever, give him time. They're not going to get rid of him. I didn't like it. It wasn't like this is the best move ever, but I also was like, I'm not gonna like blame, like I'm not gonna be like they need to fire Mo because Brandon Crawford gets a start every week or two, like whatever.
Well, it's not even Ollie that apparently.
Well, but there's the back thing. Like when we didn't know about the back, I was really annoyed by it. Now that we know it's a back thing, like I get why he's not. But now that Fermin's on the roster, it's like there's zero excuse. Crawford should not be playing. And then I think you kind of saw maybe Ollie's patience wear thin with Crawford when they pulled him mid-game the other day. Like, I think they're seeing it. And I think they have seen it. They're just like, we're going to give it some time. I would DFA Crawford when Dylan Carlson's back because worst case, if you need to go down and get another shortstop, it won't be any worse than Brandon Crawford in free agency. So, like, you're not downgrading.
Just trade for Paul DeYoung. You know, that would be so much
something like that.
Everyone
you have Jose Fermin. Yeah, and like Jose Fermin, apparently they think is a better defender than Brandon Crawford. So like, if you're getting a negative at the play anyways, you might as well go with the better defender. Get Fermin as the backup, and then if they feel comfortable with it at some point, you could call up to JC, but I don't want him only up here to play twice a week. I would make that move when Dylan Carlson's back, and then your bench is Ciani, or no, you start Carlson. So your bench is Herrera, Fermin, Ciani, Burleson. I would try to get Burleson playing as much as possible right now, which speaking of, I think I would be ready to move him to the 3 spot now because there's precedent. The Cardinals have done this before with Kyle Burleson batting 3rd. I think I'd do that. Move Newt down to like 6th. So you go Brendan Donovan, Wilson Contreras, Alec Burleson, Arenado, Goldschmidt, Nootbaar, Wynn, Gorman, and then Carlson is probably what you do in Carlson's back or Ciani. But I don't dislike Nootbaar in the 3rd spot right now because I think his expected stuff, I think he's going to be better. It hasn't been totally there results wise yet. I just
had a terrible thought.
Oh, go for it.
When Matt Carpenter comes back, you have to send down Fermin, right? Because they're not going to DFA Carpenter, and you have to send down Fermin, and then they need someone to back up shortstop. And I don't think they're going to send down Burleson.
They can't right now. You
do
cannot
that?
Send down Burleson right now. So
you send down Ciani.
I think you probably send down Ciani, and you probably let Dylan Carlson play center, and then Nootbaar slides over to center when needed. I think that's probably what you do.
Okay, good. So I was like, if Carpenter, because Carpenter can't play short.
Yeah, I mean they could do the whole.
Also, why is Carpenter on the roster? Sorry,
I know that's a different. Which I don't. Hopefully, I mean, again, especially if like they're gonna like they did this with Albert Pujols at like they were considering like they were open to because he was considering retiring mid-year in 2022 when things were going poorly, and they were giving him less and less at bats. Like they're not afraid to move guys off of their at bats if they need to. If they're in a desperate place or they need offense, I don't think they would totally be against getting rid of Carpenter. I do think that's like a last resort. I have a hard time believing without
and then just keep him on the 60-day. Like that's
they could ghost IL him here. I have a hard time believing with how good Burleson's been lately that they'd send him down. I think it made sense when he was like the advanced metrics guru, but wasn't producing. But now he's producing. You could maybe do Brendan Donovan as the backup shortstop, where he plays like once or twice a week. I don't think they want to do that though, so I kind of doubt they go that direction. But then you can keep Ciani instead of sending him down. You send down Fermin, but yeah, I don't. Gosh, it's weird that we're thinking about how do you fit a worse player on the roster right now? How do you make that happen? But oh man, Andrew's lights. If you had it on the bingo card, we got one more time. So yeah, those are some moves I would consider right now. I do think it's interesting that I like the idea of Nootbaar in center field right now. I just do with the offense and Cam Burleson in the lineup. But even when Dylan Carlson's playing, you never know how bad it could be. But the hope is that he's like a league average hitter, which is a significant improvement over what Victor Scott and Michael Ciani have given you on center field this year. So that's not going to fix the offense, but not having basically a 0 in the 9th spot every day will probably help you out a little bit. I could see moving Mason Wynn up in the order a little bit, but I don't know how much more you move him up. And I think I kind of don't want to mess with what's going well for him down there right now at the bottom. And you kind of turn over the lineup for the top. I think, honestly, one guy that we don't talk enough about that needs to get it going is Brendan Donovan, because I feel like when he gets it going, this team gets it going. He can knock in the guys that are on base at the bottom of the lineup, and then he can be on base for the Goldschmidts, Arenados of the world. So he's been struggling lately. I love Brendan Donovan. I think he's a key to this offense. When he's good, the offense is good. So once Brendan Donovan gets it going, I'll feel a lot better about things. But yeah, overall, I feel like we're disappointed where the Cardinals are at right now, but we're not. I mean, so I'm not freaking out. I don't think Andrew's totally freaking out, but I think you're probably more concerned than I am. The offense, again, none of us are going to try and act like it's been good, but I feel like it's going to get better.
I'll give you one little positive to play devil's advocate for a second. The Cardinals' OPS with runners in scoring position so far this year is about 150 points higher than a certain hitter. I'll let you take a guess as to who that might be. But
Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, maybe. So if you're hopeful the offense might turn it around, you can look at that stat and be like, it's been 1 month.
Yeah.
So,
and also, like, I mean, you can think of it as like an organizational issue, but come on, not all these guys are going to be this bad all the time. And like, again, even if they're not a top 10 offense, if the pitching's at least pretty similar to what it is right now, and you get a significant jump in offense to league average, I have a hard time believing this is not going to be a pretty competitive team this year. But again, like, what were people's expectations? Because if this offense was firing in all cylinders right now, this team is in first place in the division probably and has one of the better records in baseball. I'm sorry, I thought a lot of people were telling me this year they weren't going to be that good. So like, I don't know why people are freaking out that like the record's worse than what, like, I thought most people thought they're about to be a 500 team. And I know that not being happy about something doesn't mean it's not what you thought would happen. But I think some people are like, hey, I think they're going to be slightly above 500, but then they're hovering around 500 and they're like, this team's worse than I thought it was. It's like, well, isn't this what you thought it was going to be? But like Donovan, 677 OPS. No way it finishes that low. Contreras is high right now, 878, so maybe that comes down. But like Nootbaar 601, no way. Arenado 680, no way. Goldschmidt 630, no way. Burleson at 706 might be where he lands. Win at 758 is probably is better than I thought he'd be. Gorman at 606, again, no way it's that low. I'm not trying to tell you all these guys are going to be all stars, but I have a pretty confident most of them be over 700. Oh gosh, what happened?
The Cardinals have sole possession of fourth place because the Pirates lost.
Woo! No longer last place. Stop trying to now I can't, like, when the replies are they're still in last place, I can be like, nope. No, they aren't. So oh man. Is the Brewers game over yet? Or have they played?
Yeah, they destroyed the Rays. The Rays are really bad this year.
Dang.
I don't get it.
So the Cardinals 6.5 back of them then?
5 or 6. I don't know, 5.5. I looked in last place and I saw the Pirates.
Oh, only 5.5.
Yeah,
not bad. Again, last year, May 1st, they were 10 games out, and I think they lost all their games up until May 8th. So
yeah, 1 year ago today, I went to the ball game. I wanted to watch Shohei Ohtani play. He wasn't in the lineup, and I got to watch the Angels destroy Steven Matz without Shohei Ohtani.
I was at that game. We didn't know each other yet, but I was also at that game. I was just talking to one of my buddies about it, and they're like, bad times. Hey, let's end on this because I think we can kind of preview kind of a future episode we want to do. We kind of held off on it because actually it was on Brendan Schaefer's podcast last Friday. You can go check that out. It's got like a high bloom picture on it. But we talked about what if the season just goes poorly. Shane was like, yeah, I don't think those guys will hit that bad, but what if? What if the season goes poorly? This a retool will be coming. So again, I don't think that's what's going to happen. What was that?
Blow it up. Trade everybody.
We'll talk about this soon, especially if you guys want to hear, like if you're listening still on YouTube, you can add us on Twitter, or if you're in the live stream right now, listening later, comment if you want to hear us talk about what happened, like what we would do if this team ends up just being bad, and like, who do you sell? What do you sell? What's the game plan? I wrote something for Redbird Rants about it recently. If you want to go check that out. Again, Brendan Schaefer and I talked about that on his podcast last Friday. You can go check that out. It was a really interesting conversation, but I want to hear between me, Andrew, and Sandy at some point what we think they'll do. If you're interested in a conversation like that, let us know, and subscribe so you can get that, because I'm sure we'll do it at some point, but if you want it sooner than later, let us know. I think it'd be just to give a little bit. I think it's more of a retool than a rebuild. I don't think they're going to fully blow it up, but I think they trade way more pieces than they did last deadline. Andrew and Sandy will talk more about it at some point, because I think it'd be really interesting to get all of our points on this and to kind of be like, hey, let's see what would happen. And it's actually kind of, when Brett Schaefer and I got done with it, we were kind of like, this this is actually a lot more fun and interesting of a team than you would think for someone that like sold at the deadline for 2 straight years. So I think in some ways, it could actually reinvigorate Cardinals fans to have like, instead of having like a team that you're kind of hoping is going to make it work, you like blow it up a little bit and take a step back to be better in the future. Like that's fun and exciting sometimes to have an outlook like that, rather than like, hey, we signed 3 aging starters and are going to try and run it back again. So we'll definitely do it at some point. I see some comments that are saying we should
get
Andrew
for Lance Lynn. You know, you never know what you could find on the trade
Okay,
market.
I don't want to steal the whole podcast, but I think that's one of the things we can talk about is like Lane Thomases of the world don't work in a place like St. Louis when you can't give them time to figure it out. So like if you have one, or like if you take a step back in 2025 and you're like, hey, if we're competitive, we're competitive. If not, we don't care. You can play guys like Moises Gomez or Thomas JC or whoever and let them figure out, or Jordan Walker can play every day in St. Louis and he can struggle and it's fine because he can figure it out in St. Louis. Like you might uncover some talent that you haven't before because you have to get winning talent in there all the time. Instead, you can focus on development at the big league level too, which you can't do right now necessarily. I mean, I'm not defending their lack of development stuff, but it's harder to work a guy in when you're trying to win 90 games than when you don't care. So we'll get into it all this time.
They have a Hall of Famer in uniform from every year because that's what they say every opening day. So they're going to sign Max Scherzer, who wanted to be here, but they're going to sign him 5 years too late.
I do think it's becoming increasingly more likely Max Scherzer is a Cardinal, and it's just so odd. So can't wait to see that notification next offseason when Max Scherzer wanted to be here. So we'll see. What if the Rangers won't be bad. Verlander, though, the Astros keep being bad. Trade
in 2034, the Cardinals are going to sign Shohei Ohtani. I have to send Mosaic flowers 10 years after he leaves the organization. He's going to be a bench bat and a reliever, and he's going to be providing veteran leadership on both sides of the ball.
Beautiful for Tink Hentz and Mason Wind and Chase Davis and all of them. Anyways, this is fun. Thanks for popping in. We really appreciate the support today. Again, like the podcast or like the episode if you can. That really helps us a ton. Subscribe as well for more Cardinals content. We go live on Sundays and Wednesdays. We're going to look at the Sunday schedule a little bit because we've been going live during the games and we want to try and avoid that a little bit. So keep on the lookout for that. Again, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, where you can find your podcasts as well. Like, subscribe, share with a friend. It helps us out a ton as well. And yeah, I'm excited to see this White Sox series. If it goes poorly, I don't think our Sunday podcast is going to be very fun. So please go sweep the White Sox. We'll see you next time.